It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of May 28th, 2004, Memorial Day weekend. And before I get to it, a funny story. Yeah, I originally deleted the original opening for this. I had to clean up my phone, and I didn't realize until it was too late that I completely deleted the entire opening for this, which isn't really that big of a deal. I just thought that was kind of funny that that happened, but so yeah, this is actually take 2 of the original opening I had here. But we do have 5 movies to look at here. We have a lot of films to get to, so yeah, this is being made after I pretty much recorded all the other stuff, so with that said, let's get to it. And what better way to start off the Memorial Day weekend by taking a look at a film from Roland Emmerich, who returns after Independence Day, Godzilla, and The Patriot with his latest disaster film, and that is, of course, The Day After Tomorrow.
Explain what is causing this weather and why it has taken them by surprise.
Sudden drop in temperature as half an hour ago. Mexican officials closed the border.
Be prepared to go live to Los Angeles.
What you see is happening now.
Behind me, that's a tornado! A twister?
This is just massive. Lower Manhattan is virtually inaccessible.
A wall of water coming towards New York City. Everybody,
Save as many as you can.
Of course, it's a Roland Emmerich directed movie. I mean, how great was the marketing for this movie? I mean, again, you know, Independence Day, Godzilla, great marketing. The movies, not so much. But yeah, you kind of have seen with these movies that I've talked about of Roland Emmerich that I'm not really the biggest fan of his. His films overall are mostly not that great, not as great as people make them out to be. I didn't like Independence Day. I really didn't like Godzilla, but nobody really liked Godzilla. The Patriot I thought was pretty good, and so he returns to what made his career jump to the stratosphere with Independence Day. This time around, instead of an alien attack, it's basically the weather taking control of the world. This is actually based off of a book called The Coming Global Superstorm, and it depicts catastrophic climatic events following the disruption of the North Atlantic Ocean circulation, in which a series of extreme weather events used to usher in climate change and lead to a new ice age. And as you see in the trailer, massive hurricanes are happening, Tokyo is struck by a hailstorm, Los Angeles has a twister, New York is flooded and then frozen over, and chaos and some hilarity ensues. But you know what? The craziest thing about this whole thing, I've talked so much shit about Roland Emmerich's other movies, but believe it or not, I actually really do like this movie a lot. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this is probably the best overall Roland Emmerich disaster movie he's ever made as a filmmaker. I mean, this is a surprisingly really good movie, because unlike a movie like Independence Day or 2012 or Independence Day Resurgence, where he's doing these, or Moonfall, you could tell that this is the most serious disaster movie he's ever made as a filmmaker in general, and it's a film that's not filled with like these little bits of comedy here and there to like lighten the load and all that. No, for the most part, it's very much taken seriously, and a lot of great actors are involved in this. You know, Dennis Quaid. This is probably his best overall film, considering the year he had that also included, you know, The Alamo and The Flight of the Phoenix, which were big box office bombs. You have Jake Gyllenhaal following up on Donnie Darko. This is one of his first big breakout blockbuster roles. Celia Ward, who actually would become the president in Independence Day Resurgence. Emmy Rossum, who also would have a pretty big year, starring in this and then starring in The Phantom of the Opera, but then not really becoming anything too relevant until we get to her in Shameless, which is a great show, by the way. And of course, you got the great Ian Holm, who, anytime he shows up in anything, usually will turn out to be a very good film. He actually has another great movie coming up pretty soon that we'll get to in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, this is a really good movie. And it's a really good movie mostly because of how good the effects are in this movie, which they look legitimate. They look like they really could feel like something that could actually happen in real life if this actually happens there. If this happens, like if there was actually a twister in downtown Los Angeles, that's probably what it would look like, you know? If there was a massive flood in New York City, that's what it probably would look like. And, you know, it's done very well. It's really a movie where the visual effects really do come out to shine here, and it really does a good job of showing that, hey, we don't need to make these look as bad as Roland Emmerich would do later on down the road with his other movies, but like I said, it plays it very seriously for the most part. There are those moments there where it does go for a little bit of the comical effect, but nowhere near as insane as 2012 or the Independence Day movies does. I mean, they know how to keep it somewhat restrained, with a couple of exceptions here or there. Of course, one of the big things that comes to mind is when, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal and Emmy Rossum are out in the ice in New York City, and then all of a sudden the ice suddenly starts freezing over to sub-zero temperatures, and they have to run back to this warm area before they die because of the fast freezing. And you can literally hear, like, it literally sounds like the equivalent of the freezing knocking on the door, like the Jaws character from Saturday Night Live, Chevy Chase's character, where it's just like it's where it's usually either Gilda Radner or Lorraine Newman or Jane Curtin is hearing the knock on the door, and they're going up, and it's just like, who is it? And then you hear Chevy Chase going, Eddie Graham, and then they open the door and they realize that that's Jaws coming up from them. I mean, it kind of reminded me of that, but that's the beautiful thing about this movie, because in a bad movie like 2012, where honestly they have just way too many comical elements to it that just are poorly put together. Like, there's lines that are literally leading to moments of disaster, and it's just like, really, we really had to do that. But in this movie, they know how to keep it restrained for the most part. You know, it's a really good movie, man. I really had a good time with it. It's a movie it's the perfect definition of a turn your brain off, have a good time movie. It doesn't feel like your intelligence is being insulted by it by any means necessary. It's a good, fun movie. The visuals are amazing to look at. It's just a really good, fun time. It's one of those movies that I was very skeptical about when it came out, but I've become to really admire this movie for what they were able to pull off. And like I said, the action looks pretty cool. The visuals look very impressive. It's a really good, fun summer popcorn blockbuster movie. And really, that's what I wanted to see from Independence Day and these Independence Day resurgence in like 2012. Like just be fun movies. Don't insult our intelligence when you have to throw in lazy comedy and all these, you know, over the top, pseudo-Christian type of things, like in 2012, the whole thing about John Cusack's character being kind of like Jesus Christ. Like, there's literally an element being put into that particular film, but in this film, it really does a good job of keeping that tone down and just having a good time. And I think it's Roland Emmerich's best movie overall. I think it is a fun film. I can't recommend it enough. The Day After Tomorrow. Such a good, fun time overall. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is Kate Hudson starring in Gary Marshall's Raising Helen.
Actually, are we pretty sure The Day After Tomorrow isn't happening right now?
Our photographer wanted me to look fast. The summer's first great comedy is here. I've inherited your sister's children.
What?
Really? Raising Helen is a laugh-out-loud comedy that will really move you. We have a model down. Kate Hudson lights up the screen in the hilarious, feel-good comedy we've been waiting for all year.
Isn't that the principal of our school? Spelled in A.
Raising Helen, rated PG-13. In theaters next.
Yeah, fuck those kids. Let's focus on Kate Hudson and her ass. I mean, you think that title card is just for the title card? No. That's the main focus of the marketing campaign. I mean, seriously, look at that. Yeah, that's literally the poster. It's just like, yeah, screw those kids. We want you to come here to see Kate Hudson and that, you know, to quote Al Pacino instead of a woman, that great ass. I thought that was just kind of amusing to bring up here, but this is despite that, this is actually supposed to be a heartfelt comedy, Raising Helen, in which, as the trailer indicates, Kate Hudson is this, you know, free-spirited, outgoing woman who suddenly gets a wake-up call when her sister ends up passing away, and she gets to take custody of these 3 kids, played by Hayden Panettiere, Spencer Breslin, and Abigail Breslin, in one of her early film roles, of course, following her big brother, who was already having a successful career. This was actually one of her first movies that she did, and, they basically helped to turn her life around, and essentially she ends up falling in love with John Corbett, as this pastor. She's got her older sister, Joan Cusack, involved in here. Helen Mirren's also in the film, Felicity Huffman. A lot of the Gary Marshall regulars, like, Hector Elizondo, of course, you got to have him in here, so you have Larry Miller. So the pieces are definitely there for something that could be fun in general, but it's pretty much just a typical sitcom premise to it. I mean, it really is a literal sitcom, quite honestly. Like, it's one of those things where you would have thought this would have been something that ABC probably would have had on their lineup opposite Roseanne and The Wonder Years. Like, it feels like that type of a movie. And I don't even think Disney really knew itself how to market the movie, because they actually put a short at the beginning of this from their animation studio, their kid-based animation, the animation studio that's specifically tailored to kids. They stuck this short on there called Lorenzo, which is a really good short, by the way. It's a short about this cat who gets his tail jinxed and ends up coming to life and starts causing all this chaos overall. There's really, but why attached to this particular movie is really baffling to me. It's kind of like what happened with the Daffy Duck short they did back in the 80s, The Duckstresses, which they actually put in front of that Barbra Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss movie Nuts, which was like an R-rated movie, and then they decided to stick this Daffy Duck cartoon specifically for kids on there. I mean, granted, yeah, The Exorcist is an R-rated movie, so maybe that was the thinking there, but it's kind of baffling why they decided to throw that short on there. It's a good short, by the way. It's probably the only reason I'd probably even go see this movie in the first place, is just for that. But, yeah, other than that, though, the movie itself is pretty bland, and it really devoids of the talents of Kate Hudson as. I mean, this is a woman that was nominated for an Academy Award for Almost Famous. She is a good actress overall, and proves that the whole, Nepa baby thing, like, there are some good Nepa babies out there, and even by today's standards, there's a lot of good Nepa babies out there, but Kate Hudson has proven to be a very good actress over the years, but movies like this really devoid her of showing off what her true talents really are. And it just really is a shame that this is another one of those movies that really can't capitalize on the fact that this woman was nominated for an Oscar for her work in Almost Famous. I mean, it's just another one of those movies like Uptown Girls we had the year before with Brittany Murphy, except this time around, instead of just one kid, it's now 3 of them. But I guess the most I could say about it is that it's not a bad movie in general, but it's just a film that really is not that overall great in general. It's just a mediocre comedy. Doesn't really have a whole lot of good laughs overall, and it's pretty much something you would see on the ABC family lineup, like TGIF, pretty much. But, I mean, that's just my personal take on it, per se. So, that's Raising Helen, so let's go ahead and move on to... I'll give it this, though. It's certainly a lot better than the next comedy we have here. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment of truth has finally arrived. Let us talk about the infamous Soul Plane.
Announcing the arrival of the first airline with Soul.
Welcome aboard. Thank you for choosing the Soul plane.
From the time you arrive at the gate,
You doing good? You feel wonderful.
till the moment you meet the crew,
Hey, Captain.
At ease, ladies.
we make sure you have an unforgettable flying experience.
Keep out this little safety video we put together for you.
Now that you got on a plane, you better just do as you say.
Sit tight and enjoy the flight.
Kevin Hart,
Mayday. Mayday.
Tom Arnold,
Oh, hey.
D.L. Hughley,
Damn.
Sorry. Well, I guess you can't have the lightning without the thunder.
Method Man, Monique, and Snoop Dogg.
What the hell's going on here?
Well, I'm afraid of heights.
This is wonderful. I love this freaky stuff like this.
This spring, the party is non-stop.
Oh no, you can't use that phone while you're...
Girl, please. No. They say that to rip you off.
Soul Plane.
I don't know what you got in there, but we gonna find out. You wanna say something?
Academy Award winner Monique, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, the greatest thing about this whole movie is the fact that this is a film that could have easily killed so many careers, and yet it actually helps some of these people out in general But Soul Plane, this is another one of those movies that's in my list of the worst movies of all time, and quite frankly, it's kind of hard not to see why. I mean, we already had a year where we had the black equivalent to National Lampoon's Vacation. Now here's the black equivalent of Airplane. I guess you can pretty much tell what the plot of this movie is. Soul Plane. Why just fly when you can soar with soul? This is what MGM put out as the press synopsis for this movie, by the way. After a humiliating experience on an airplane, Nashawn Wade, played by Kevin Hart, sues the airline and is awarded a huge settlement. Determined to make good with the money, Nashawn creates the full-service airline of his dreams, complete with sexy stewardesses, funky music, a hot onboard dance club, and a bathroom attendant, played by D.L. Hughley. Departing from the all-new Terminal X in Los Angeles, a Soul Plane gives Fly a whole new meaning, taking its passengers on a maiden voyage full of comedy. Somebody at MGM greenlit this movie. MGM looked at this and said, this will totally sell. I mean, it will really sell. I mean, just everything about this movie is so wrong. And the fact that it's basically a black version of Airplane, but that it's also racist, not funny, and just downright stupid. Nothing about this movie makes any sense whatsoever. This is just an unspeakably awful movie on so many levels. It really does feel like a good majority of this movie was written by people who simply have seen the black stereotypes and decided, let's just make an entire movie just on that. You know, let's put the black terms in there. There's Tom Arnold's Family, where they just come from a place called Crackerland because it's on their hat, and his daughter wants to date a black guy, wants to screw a black guy, and little things like this, and that's just the beginning, because it really just feels like a film that was made about people who do not give a fuck about how racist they can be, because they pull out all the stops in this movie, and it's just so offensively bad, it's despicable. And the only time anything Soul Plane gets involved in that actually does get a laugh really doesn't even happen in the movie. It's the fact that the Boondocks made a whole joke about it. You know, the Boondocks consistently makes fun of Soul Plane to the point where they actually had to create a sequel within the movie that probably would have been a whole lot better than the actual movie was. That and Get Rich or Die Trying, considering that, 50 Shades of Grey is involved in there. And of course, from one of my favorite TV episodes of all time, where Martin Luther King Jr., what if he didn't die? He saw what present day was like. He's making that speech at the end, and then all of a sudden, while he's speaking, it just cuts away to him going, and now I'd like to talk about Soul Plane. It's just like, you could tell how much the people who made the Boondocks really hated Soul Plane. And if an animated series is parodying a movie that's actually getting more laughs than the animated series in the actual movie, there's a huge, huge problem here. I mean, we just talked about Welcome to Mooseport. One of the is that joke in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. That's the only way that movie's ever going to get relevancy ever again. But and like I said before, look at what happened to the cast of this movie. You would think that the careers for this movie would have been tarnished by everybody involved here. But Kevin Hart, he stars in the movie, and guess what happens? Does his career end? No. He actually goes on to become one of the biggest box office stars on the planet. He actually became more of a popular comedian after that, and he became such a reliable draw with films like Ride Along, Central Intelligence, the Jumanji movies. I mean, the guy, it's just one person, but then again, like I said, Monique, she was on a very popular UPN show at the time, The Parkers. Surely that destroyed her career, and then I just realized that she got an Oscar for Precious, and Sofia Vergara, you see her there as one of the stewardesses. She was a rising comedic actress in America, after 6 years in Spanish television. And then this comes out, and then she never went on to become anything big except for a prominent Emmy-nominated role on Modern Family 2. I mean, it's amazing how this movie could have easily destroyed so many careers, and yet it doesn't. In the long run, it really actually did quite the opposite, which is amazing to think about. When you think about movies that are on this level of disaster that could easily destroy a career easily. We were in the midst of this point when Ben Affleck's career pretty much got destroyed before he eventually made his comeback. It's just like, but the fact that people actually came back from this movie, had bigger careers than ever before, you really can't say anything else except holy shit, hell is frozen over. You can actually come back from one of the most offensively bad movies ever made. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Fire and brimstone, earthquakes, volcanoes, the dead rising from the grave, human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Enough, I think you got the point. But does that make Soul Plane any good? No. But do you think it does more good for the world than bad? You think any of these people or anybody in this movie would have still found success, even if this was even after such a massive film on their part? We will never really know for sure, but it certainly is out of the realm of possibility. But I don't know. To me, I think most people can agree Soul Plane is still an insult to cinema that really does treat black people poorly, treats good comedy poorly, it treats these actors poorly. It's a cheap joke that has no merit or value to it whatsoever. After it's all said and done, it's just a really bad movie. It's in my top 20 for the worst movies ever made. That should tell you everything you need to know about this film. But that's Soul Plane, of course. So we've had a couple of bad comedies. How about a really good comedy that came out this weekend? Here is Mandy Moore, Jenna Malone, and Macaulay Culkin in the movie Saved.
A movie they can believe.
Who's down with G.O.D.?
It's really fun.
Secondhand smoke kills.
I'm counting on it.
4 stars.
I know what you're looking at, Mary. And Jesus does too.
Bravely subversive.
Performing an exorcism! Help me! You don't know about love.
I am filled with Christ's love.
This Friday, everyone has questions.
I still don't think he's supposed to be white.
Who has the answer?
Of course he's white.
Saved. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
I really like this movie a lot, but unfortunately, of course, we had Mean Girls the month before, and it really, I think, took a lot of the muster away from this particular film. But that should not take away from how good this movie really is. You have Jenna Malone playing a teenage girl at a Christian high school who has sex with her boyfriend in an attempt to cure him of his homosexuality. She becomes pregnant as a result and is ostracized by her schoolmates, including Mandy Moore, as well as finding friends with Macaulay Culkin, who plays a kid in a wheelchair. And he was really on a roll at this point. Like, he was really coming back. Party Monster the year before, and now this movie. And yeah, like I said before, this is a film that is really, really good. It didn't get the proper respect back then. Some people said it was it pulled a little bit too much of its punches to really go for the full satirical elements that it really could go for. But I don't know, I thought it did its job very well. I thought it was a very good film, a very funny movie in particular. It's great seeing people like Mandy Moore and Macaulay Culkin outside of their norm. I mean, Mandy Moore had been in some really bad movies up to this point, but this is a film that really does show that there is potential with her as an actress in general. I mean, she really is very good in the movie. Everybody in here works very well. I didn't mention Patrick Fugit, Martin Donovan, Mary Louise Parker, just a terrific, terrific cast in general. It's a really good movie. It's a really funny movie that a lot of people, I don't think, really get the proper respects it deserves. It's very clever, very funny stuff. It has stuff in there that just makes you laugh out loud, you just can't. And again, it probably would have been a much bigger hit in general, even though it was considered a sleeper hit at the time, making back $9 million over about $5 million. So it did make its money back in general, but I really do think the film took a backseat because Mean Girls came out at the time, and that is a much better film in general, but this is a film that is very funny, very well made. I think it's a criminally underrated little gem that you should definitely give a chance to check out. I haven't even mentioned other people like Heather Matarazzo and Eva Murray, who of course is Susan Sarandon's daughter, who are all very good in the film. They are very funny in general. It's a really, really funny film. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely seek out Saved. It's definitely a great underrated little gem. And speaking of underrated little gems, that's what we'll end this show on with our last movie, and that is Mario Van Peebles' film, Baadasssss.
I gotta tell you, it's right on. Was groundbreaking.
You've been living it. You have the passion for
His struggle, let me it being black or green, and self-destruction. Legendary.
I'm telling the truth, brother. You take it after you take it.
Critics are calling Badass empowering, inspiring.
And they'll put some clothes on. This ain't Soul Train.
From the director of New Jack City.
I got everything I own on the line.
But it's bigger than me. Badass. Rated R. Coming soon.
So this is a movie that's based on the struggles of Mario Van Peebles' father, Melvin Van Peebles, who he plays in this movie, as he attempts to film and distribute Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, a film that was widely credited with showing Hollywood that a viable African-American audience exists out there, and thus influencing the creation of the blaxploitation genre. As you see in the trailer, Adam West is also in the movie, as is a pre-Office Rainn Wilson, Joy Bryant, Neil Long, Ossie Davis, Paul Rodriguez, Terry Crews, David Allen Greer, Glenn Plummer. Terrific cast in general, and Mario Van Peebles had been kind of on a downward spiral a little bit after his breakout film with New Jack City. All the movies he did after that were not really that successful, and this is probably his best overall film since New Jack City. It's a movie that you could tell is very personal to him for obvious reasons, because of course he's playing his father in the movie, and the film just is so well put together. It's a movie that is really, really well done. The acting is great. The direction overall is top notch. Seeing all these actors in this movie that you don't usually see in these type of films anymore, like Adam West, who I thought was really good in the film. It's really impressive how he's able to what Peebles has done with this film. It's a really damn good movie. A great tribute to his father from his son. It's a film that really should have gotten a lot more attention than it did, but it felt like it kind of like what Sade, it felt like it got kind of lost in the shadows. Probably if this film could have been a strong Oscar contender if the movie had opened up around the Oscar season in general. I feel like if the movie had been out around that time period, it could have made a lot more money, could have been seen by much more people, but unfortunately, it did not make the money that I think a lot of people were expecting it to do, but it should not take away from the fact that this is a pretty damn good movie, and definitely a film that, if you're looking to see what Mario Van Peebles has done since New Jack City, this is easily his best overall film he's done since that movie. Probably the last great film he ever did in general, and you know what, go on a high note with this movie here, and I can't recommend this one enough. It's a criminally underrated film that definitely deserves a lot more attention. It's one that definitely needs to be seen. Badass, Mario Van Peebles, definitely check it out. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. And when we meet next time, we've got one movie to look at, the big new release of the weekend, and you can't get any bigger than Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. And was the film that really kind of took the Harry Potter series to a whole nother level and just said that, hey, these aren't just kids' movies anymore. We're now heading into the more darker adult territory. And it began with this particular film that we're going to look at on the next episode. So definitely be on the lookout for that tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.